Frogman Friday.
Yeah, boy. What's up, my people? It's that time again. Welcome to the Frogman Friday show.
Presented by Transcend, the best peptide and hormone therapy. They put your health first so you can live more and worry less. Go to transcendcompany.com/Birdman to begin your wellness transformation today.
Today, our badass guest is Holland Romero, aka H. Navy SEAL, 24 years of service, Senior Chief Petty Officer retired. He founded Legacy Forge Mindset in 2025 in San Diego, California, and you can catch him on IG, LinkedIn, and YouTube. To take a deeper dive, go check out lfmindset.com. Brother, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, it's been a long time. I remember you in the teams, and it's been since the teams that we've talked, which for me was 2010. So it's been a long time.
It has been a long time, but when you did reach out, I remember your name, and I was very happy to connect with you and catch back up. So it's been just even our last conversation, catching up on some old stories and remembering and bringing those back to memory was pretty awesome.
I want to jump right into this because you shared with me a story that I didn't know anything about. And I think the way that you became a SEAL was phenomenal. It's the coolest story ever. So for our guests, would you share how you learned about the SEALs and then circling back on that later part of the story?
Yeah, sure. So I'll try to make it a little bit brief. But so I was 19 years old growing up in Los Angeles. Military was not on my radar at all. I thought at that time that military was for people who just needed that extra instruction, that extra motivation, and that wasn't me. But at 19, I was working at Chili's, the restaurant, and happened to go to a party one night. And the guy who threw the party has always had these very exciting parties, but for some reason when I walked in this party kind of a little bit late, it was kind of somber and just had a weird mood to it. So went up to one of my buddies and I was like, "Hey, what's going on here?" And he's like, "Oh, there's this guy here." He's pointing over to this guy over at a table sitting with this girl. I was like, "Yeah, what's the big deal?" He's like, "Well, he's a Navy SEAL." And I'm like, "Well, what is that?" And I'd never heard about the SEAL teams at all. And he's like, "I don't know. It's secret. You should go ask him." So okay, so I go up, I walk over to this guy, sit at a table. I'm like, "Hey, I heard you're a Navy SEAL." And he's like, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, what is that?" And I'll never forget. He says, "We jump out of planes, we dive, and we kill people." And at 19 years old, I'm like, "You get paid to do that?" And he's like, "Yeah." So I said, "Well, how do I get that job?" And he just says, "Go to the Navy recruiter, let him know that that's what you want to do, and then you go from there." So very next day, I go down to the Navy recruiter, walk in, tell the recruiter, "Hey, I want to be a Navy SEAL." Chris shows me the video of four guys fast roping off of a helicopter on top of this building, about 10 stories. And as they're going down each story, down the stairs, they're killing a bunch of terrorists. As they run out the bottom floor, hit the clacker, whole building blows up behind them. I'm like, "Let's do this. Where do I sign?" So signed the contract. Well, the long story, I won't go into all the details here, but he tried to talk me out of it because I had never shot a gun before, never dove before, had no idea about what the military was about, didn't even know officer enlisted. That's how naive I was. And this was about 3 weeks before Christmas. He talked me into, "Hey, you need it because you haven't done anything. You've never run more than a mile, never done water sports. You need to train for 3 months. We'll send you in March." And I said, "Okay." Went home, told my parents. They absolutely freaked out. Called him back and said, "Hey, I can't wait 3 months. I have to leave now." He said, "I got one spot the night of Christmas if you want it." I left like 2 weeks later, night of Christmas, zero preparation, not knowing anything, off to buds. And the other part was I signed because I didn't know about the military. He wanted me to take a job in the Navy. Back then, SEALs weren't their own rate. There wasn't SOs yet. So I told him, "The only way I'm signing this contract, I'm not interested in the Navy. The only way I'm signing, you guarantee me I go from boot camp straight to buds." He told me, "If I let you sign this contract, you're going to go to Bud. You're going to go from boot camp to buds. You're not going to make it because you have no idea what you're doing. And you're going to be the guy who's chipping paint on a ship for the next 4 years because you don't have a job." I just didn't care. Signed that contract. Went from boot camp straight to buds. Graduated buds. Seaman apprentice Romero. E2 nothing. And had a 24-year career after that. But the biggest kicker of it all is that the guy that I talked to that night that changed the course of my life. Turns out he was lying. So he had gone to buds, quit, and told everybody he was a Navy SEAL. And I found that out after I graduated. I looked him up, and he was a quitter in like a year, one of the classes a year ahead of time. So, But entire trajectory of my life changed off of a lie a guy told me when I was 19 years old. So
It's absolutely insane. I mean, I love hearing this story. I still want to kick that dude's ass, but that's just amazing because even though his lie turned into a great career for you, um, kind of funny because when I was in high school, same thing. I didn't know anything about the SEALs, and my teacher had influenced me to do as a Marine in Vietnam. But the funny thing was, he said, there's another guy who's an upperclassman who wants to be a SEAL. So why don't I get you two together? So I meet this guy, never dresses in name brand shirts. He's got long hair. He's beefy. And I'm like, maybe this is what it looks like. And so we started talking a lot about it. This guy knew everything about it. I ended up enlisting. I go to Buds, become a SEAL. I come back and I never hear from this guy. I look through all the teams on the West Coast. I still can't find his name. I'm like, whatever happened to him? Turns out the guy never, ever intended to go to Buds. And I'm like, wow, this guy knew more than I did by far and never, ever moved forward. So I wouldn't call him a liar, but your story's nuts, man. So nuts. Wow.
yeah,
That's nuts. Well, 24 years, man. Like I did 8 years and it was hard enough for me to walk away after 8 years because the job is so awesome and the people are even better. After 24 years of service, what was that transition like for you?
It was a little difficult because the only reason I got out is, I got to a point as a senior chief at 24 years, my next role would have been behind the desk. I would have been a master chief behind the desk. And that's not why I came in, not going from not knowing anything to, man, this SEAL team sounds like exactly what I need to be part of an elite brotherhood. Being able to live that career over 24 years, and I stayed operational the entire time because I went from the regular SEAL teams into the intel side of it, the SA part. And so I was able to stay active there. But once I got to that point, that's when I decided, okay, I didn't come here to sit behind the desk. But to answer your question, that transformation was kind of hard. One of the great things that happened, the T-shirt I'm wearing, the Honor Foundation, was huge in helping me make that transformation. What they built over there, what Joe Musselman and all those volunteers have done for our community is beyond amazing and super grateful. That was extremely helpful in helping me make that transition. And my mentor, Guy Hart, was absolutely amazing and instrumental to helping me make that transition. But the thing that was most difficult was, being around your brothers in for 24 years, you're around your closest 16 friends, your brothers. And of course that changes with each platoon, but you always stay so close. And then going into, okay, now I'm on my own, I'm like,
Yeah.
where is, every day was exciting. Every day was, we're doing something new. We're shooting in Mississippi, we're skydiving in Arizona, we're diving in Florida. And every 3 weeks that changes with that brotherhood. And then going to like, okay, well, I'm at home. Now I do have a job. It's not anywhere near as exciting what I'm used to doing. And that was the hardest transition for me was going from that tribe, that brotherhood that was so tight to now like, okay, I'm kind of on my own here. I mean, of course, I'm happy to be with the family. That was all great to have that family time back. But when they're at school and they're at work, it was just that was the part that was hard for me.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes sense. I mean, I always say like it took me a long period to realize and it register that I'm not doing this job anymore. But when I looked at the logic of it, well, I could still go skydive anytime I want. I can still dive anytime I want. What am I really missing here? It's that camaraderie around being in the high bay with the guys, Monday morning musters and before the actual muster, having the team muster where you talk about the weekend and craziness and all that good stuff. Right.
Right.
And
I mean, and those stories are, you can't find them anywhere else.
right.
Just the things that happen. You're like, man, we could write a book with just the stories that we collect every weekend from things that are happening.
For sure. People don't know that every high bay, which is like our bat cave where all the guys hang out and all our gear is, there's probably a TV in each one of them. And of course, the 80s movie with Charlie Sheen, Navy SEAL, is playing on all of them at all times on loop. So it's where we get our inspiration from for sure. Well, you know what? The thing I love about team guys is the entrepreneurial spirit that we have, that you guys have. I mean, it's amazing to see how guys get out and use their brains creatively. We are so focused on a job when we're in the military, and you just don't know what guys have in the backdrop, what they're thinking internally about like, hey, I could do this someday. We got authors, we got entrepreneurs, we got lawyers, doctors, everything. But to see the entrepreneurial spirit come out, which is you, it's fascinating to me because I always look at guys like you and I'm like, man, I got to level up. These guys are crushing it. They're just designing cool stuff. And I got to get serious here. So let's talk about Legacy Forge Mindset. Why did you found it and what do you do?
So it originally was founded from just my passion for mentorship. It's something that I've had from as far back as I can remember. Even as a team guy, one of the things that I took the most, I guess you'd call pride, or that I invested the most in, was the younger guys coming up. Being that example for them, and making giving them space to grow. A lot of them come up, of course, nervous. You come in your first platoon, you're like, I'm a new guy, I don't want to say anything. I tried to step out and be a mentor for them, like, hey guys, this is a space where you can mess up. This is where you can grow. Like, come, feel free. And I started out in probably my third platoon. I didn't say much my first two platoons because I just wanted to learn. But as I started to get understand things and become a leader, I opened up that space for them, and it just built incredible relationships with those guys that I still am in contact with now. That carried on into the future. As I started to grow as a leader, I became a mentor for top level executives and elite athletes. I've been doing that since 2017, so I was still in when I was doing that. And then I did that with a friend of mine, very well, Diego Ugalde. He started a company called the Trident Approach, a very great company helping big corporations with live events on the beach and just helping them really step out and become leaders. So I helped them with that, and through my interactions with that and with another company that just focused on kind of just Zoom mentorship with top level executives, all the interaction and the feedback that I got from clients was that, Holland, you stand out as someone special, because all these were pretty much group events. But the way that I provided the mentorship was a way that allowed them, kind of like I did with the other guys, to come out with not with a overbearing mindset, or just open up that space of empathy to allow them to ask me questions, to give that honest feedback without judgment. And it really resonated with a lot of people. So I think just the personal interaction that I was able to provide and get back from them gave me the confidence to say, okay, you know what, I've been doing this for a long time. I feel very confident doing it. All the feedback I've gotten is great. I'm going to start my own company and move forward. So I am in the very beginnings of that. Just started launching the company about 2 weeks ago. So just getting started, but that's why I really appreciate this opportunity just to share, what I'm doing, how passionate I am about it, the people I look to help, and just to be able to provide that evidence and inspiration for driven professionals to reach for that next rung on the ladder and to be able to do that successfully.
I love that. When you were saying that, I think about me going into a company with the executives to talk about, what you just explained. It terrifies me. I'm not that guy. Like, I'll go in and I'll help the butt shed work on their stuff and make sure they're squared away. When you get into the executive, it's a whole different ball game. And I love that you're moving forward, and you can only develop that skill set to be able to train people like that over a long career in special ops. Like a short 8-year career, you don't get enough, I believe, to really tailor to the executives. You learn some things, but 24 years, you definitely got it down right. So let's dig in a little bit deeper with your company. So you get hired by a company. When you come in, what do you start with? What is kind of your mantra? How do you work with the company?
So the first thing I do is I really want to make clear that it's not a cookie cutter process. So no two companies, no two clients, no two executives will ever have the same mentorship journey, because every company, every individual is very different. Even as far as leaders, there's a spectrum of leadership. And if you try to mentor all those different leaders the same way, at some point you're trying to turn somebody into something they're not, and that's when imposter syndrome sets in. If you lack a foundation, anything you build is going to fall apart anyway. So the very, very first thing I do is we set up an assessment where we really dig into what is their specific identity. Let's build on that solid foundation. Every company, every client has strengths. We want to identify those strengths, and that way we can build on those going forward. What are those blind spots? What are those challenges? What are your goals? Let's focus in on addressing those and making sure that we're moving forward. So the very first thing I want to do is build a solid foundation. That's key, because like I said, anything you build without that foundation, once it's put under pressure, it's going to fall apart anyway. So that's the key, is going in, identifying that company's culture. What are their strengths? Let's capitalize on those. What are their challenges? What are their goals moving forward? And from there, I will customize their plan over a 12-week period of really getting them from building that base and addressing all those different steps moving forward to make sure that we're covering everything. And those steps would go from that foundation of the breakthrough, mental toughness and mastering that inner dialogue, resilience training, learning how to build strengths from setback, the power of the vision and alignment, making sure those are focused right to get to that next level. strategic decision making under pressure. That's very key once you get to that higher level. But then you also got to remember the body, your body, your mind, that recovery. It's both mental and physical. And then communication and culture, building those relationships so that it's not something fleeting, you're building something long lasting. Then of course that goes to that legacy that you're going to build, that breakthrough where you actually activate that breakthrough. So it's not self-help, it's not a short-term thing. Really what I want to build is and help these clients is through a full transformation to where they currently are, to transform into that leader that they can be and build that, help them break through and build that legacy moving forward. So sorry, kind of a long answer, but that's kind of that is the focus of my goal moving forward with these clients.
No, I mean, the more detail, the better. It's just interesting. 12-week period. So pretty standard 12-week period for any corporation, or is it's definitely varies?
It definitely varies. So the 12 weeks is more for the individual because most of what I do is going to be individual clients. So working with them, helping them break through where they currently are, becoming those elite leaders, inspiring peak performance, and building teams that perform at the very highest level in that time period. That's the main focus. I'm always open to work with corporations as well, and I have experience doing that to come in. That would probably be a much shorter experience, probably a week if I'm working with a group of people, focusing on those things. But those would have a little bit different focus because now we're looking at big picture of the company instead of each individual specific goals. So those are two different options that we could go through. So yeah.
Okay. Is there a typical genre you look for in a corporation, or are you pretty much open to everything?
Pretty much open to everything because, like, as you know, as a SEAL, you are the one thing that no one can match us in is diversity. We've been
Yeah.
all over the world in all different situations, from super intense combat to being in an embassy, being able to sell yourself at the highest level and think outside the box to propose a plan to show that we are the world's most elite problem solving unit. So there's and everything in between, right? So that's one thing that has been huge in setting what I believe sets all of us apart as leaders in special operations, is that we bring that diversity in that spectrum, that when we go into that situation, we can not only adapt to it, but take it to the next level. And we have that track record of helping the most elite, not only individuals, but organizations throughout the world reaching and succeeding past their goals.
Yeah, it reminds me of FID when they're like, okay, I was a new guy, and then FID started coming up, and they're like, you're going to train the Special Operations Iraqi Force. And I'm like, huh? And of course, being a new guy, you don't say anything. You're like, yeah, whatever you need. Like, I'm in. And they're like, I'm supposed to train these guys. These guys don't do anything. They don't shoot rifles. They're not good at anything. They don't care about anything. Like, really? And so now having to work and pull your skill set together to figure out how you're going to train them enough to be sufficient in what they need to do, but not so good that they can't turn on us at some point.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's it's interesting, man. It's really interesting. But it does cross pollinate. It's funny. I had a buddy who ran a company and asked me to come in because he wanted to change, I guess he wanted the culture shift at his company. And I'm like, wait a minute, you want me to come in and change your culture? I don't think I can do that. And I think because it starts with you. I think the culture is you, man. Like, you're the CEO, you're the one who's putting out the mission and vision. And so if I were to come, I'm going to come and help you work on what your mission and vision is so that you can really adapt and build that culture in. Because if they see me doing something yet you're not, then I think we have a problem here because there's two different mission sets here. So it's definitely interesting. Man, I want to go to your program straight up.
Yeah.
My humongous company, but I would love to go through and work on this stuff with you so I could better myself. Is there a specific area that you see a common thread of issue when it comes to these corporations, or is it all over the map?
It is all over the map because it's different for smaller companies who are looking to break through than those big companies, like you said, where a lot of times it's the culture, trying to get that cultural alignment. They have that big name, but there's a break somewhere. Sometimes these big companies lose some of their most valuable players because they get tired of the politics that's involved. But that, like you said, it starts at the top. If it doesn't come from the top down, it's meaningless. So there's a spectrum there and that's why that assessment is so important, because if you cookie cuttered your reviews probably not be too good because a lot of it would fail. But really understanding, okay, here's where we're starting off with. Let's build on a solid foundation. Let's customize your plan going forward. To me, that's the only way to ensure success.
It makes total sense, man. What's your favorite part about what you do?
My favorite part is definitely just providing the inspiration.
Mm.
Inherently, it kind of sounds kind of a little egotistical, but I mean it in the most humble way possible. But inherently, our job being SEALs and what we've done comes with a respect and a little bit of awe and inspiration. But being able to provide that in a way, because with that, I think a lot of times comes people think we're like, they think Navy SEALs are very rigid military, and that's not us. People don't know that though because they haven't met us when you come to them and are able to provide that inspiration, they see, wow, this person's can speak eloquently, provide inspiration, is providing evidence, coming at me with empathy, understanding my situation, taking the time to help me build a foundation without that pressure, but also has the background and experience at that very elite level that's proven. Man, that's where things come together. To me, two things that make an elite, well, that make that mentorship perfect for the client, because one thing you have to remember, elite leadership and elite mindset have been around for millennia, the
Mm.
thousands of years we go back. So what the principles and lessons, a lot of them are going to be pretty similar. What's really going to set it apart, what each client should look for is number one, the chemistry. How is that chemistry with that mentor? You need to have that chemistry. And number two, their experience. What experience do they inspire you? Because if you have a mentor that you have the right chemistry, you look at their proven experience and that's inspiring, those interactions are inspiring, that's where that breakthrough is going to happen. Because you can have the most elite mentor, but if there's not that chemistry and it's not a good fit, they're not inspiring, they don't come from a background that you can relate to, then it's not going to work anyway. So those are two key things. But the biggest thing is, to answer your question, sorry, it's kind of long-winded, but to answer your question, just seeing that light come on, be able to provide that evidence and inspiration to those clients where they kind of like, they come in kind of tight and locked up, they loosen up and like, man, Holland, thank you for showing me this, and just the appreciation they show and that building that personal relationship. That's where things really come to life for me.
So to that point, is there a story from your time in the service where there was an inspiration for you that kind of led you into what you're doing now?
I would say multiple, really. There's multiple guys that mentors that I had that really provide that. One that really stands out for me was senior at the time, Senior Chief Tony Gale. He came in, and you know him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was just an incredible guy. He came in with a great reputation, and of course everyone's it's a senior chief. Typically you have a chief of platoon, and so everyone's just minding your p's and q's. He came in and he set up that platoon as just a tight knit family. I mean, and some people say you can't have a family because then you have family dynamics that cause problems, but he put it together as kind of like a mix of a tribe and a family where there was that structure, but it was filled with nothing but respect. And every single guy, the way he led us was he every all his power, all his rank, all the things that he carried as a leader, he poured down to us and provided it, opened up opportunities for us. It was never about him. He's the type of guy like, sometimes if we're on a ship for a little bit and we're doing exercise there, the Chiefs can go to the Chiefs mess and the rest of the team goes. He would never, like, he's like, no, I'm with the boys, and that type of leader. But that carried on to the battlefield through every exercise, through everything we did. And he inspired me because he was never that, loud, hey, you do that. He's just calm, relaxed, chill, and he inspired me to really become the leader that I became. And I actually still text him every once in a while, and we touch base. But yeah, I would say he's one that really stood out to me, is that empathetic leader. Didn't need to come out overbearing. He just came out honest, looking, because he actually cared and was there. And if he did mess up, he's like, hey man, this is how we're going to fix it. No big deal. Let's move forward. And he just really inspired me to be better.
See, I love when you say you operate with empathy. I think that's the massive key here, right? Because when you go into any establishment, a company, corporation, whatever, and you go in with your own agenda, it's not going to work. It's going to be shit. And
Right.
so going in saying, okay, I would like to know, what you do, full-heartedly what you do. I want to know where your successes are, and then really dive into those gaps, those blind spots you call them,
Yep.
so that I can really help you. And if you operate with empathy, you will truly be able to get in there and help them move forward and get out of their own way, per se, right?
Right.
I think that's a big key, is, pausing people. I remember being a new guy, if you're not screwing up every week, you're wrong. It's like, ask questions, but don't screw up. Okay, I screwed up again. But, you're constantly being trained and told, and you're constantly learning. And if you keep that mindset going, even as a leader, where I can be taught and I can be trained. Another thing I'd like to say, one thing that's really inspiring is when you're a Navy SEAL or an operator or in the military and you do the job, I think you get proficient at your job. But when you become an instructor is where you really hone in your skill sets, when you're teaching others constantly. And so, when people say, well, I want to go hire somebody to do this, if they're an instructor, these people know what they're talking about. You know what you're talking about, because being on both sides of the coin, you've been the operator and the instructor. This really helps you hone in those skill sets to be able to provide it for the others. So super awesome on that front, man. I love it. Man, a lot of stuff. Can you share a story with us about your time, either in service or out of service, growing up, upbringing, that you believe built you to be the man you are today?
I would say the whole buds experience, going out on, I mean, that thing really stands out. Going out on a limb, wanting something so passionately, knowing that everything was against me. They told me when I go in, like, hey, you don't know this, but there's going to be about 200 guys going into this class. Some of them have trained for over a decade. Some of them are Olympic hopefuls, and only 15 to 20% are going to make it. And of course, I understood that at 19. At 19, you also have that, there's not a lot of fear there. There's like, I can do this, I can go get it. But stepping out and having that mindset to say, I'm all in. I'm all like, they're gonna have to kill me to get me out of here. Like, I might not make the times, like I might not make it that way, but I will never quit. That's the mindset I had. Was, I was just hoping, man, I need to make those run times. I need to make the swim times. Of course, do the knot tying and drown proofing and all that. But the physical part was the most difficult part. The mindset part was the part that I flourished on, and I think set me apart. So that was the biggest thing that made me who I was. Getting through that, knowing that I have that potential. Now there's nothing I can't do. I proved that to myself, because if I believe and I'm that passionate, that I know that I will go until they'll have to kill me to make me quit, to make me stop. I will pursue that goal. And that's one thing, like, I try to convey not on the opposite side, but to the other side, to these corporate professionals. If you have that mindset, because it doesn't matter what your goal is, it could be, relationships, money, fitness. If you don't have the right mindset, you're not going to get there anyway. So a big part of leadership is mindset. It's probably the overall key for any type of transition and transformation. Having that mindset, instilling that, and believing, like, hey, of course there's a lot of things that can go wrong. Think about what can go right. How dedicated are to this? How dedicated are you to this? And that's one of the questions I ask before I work with any client. Where are you? Is this something that you kind of want to do? Is this like, tell me, or is this something you made up your mind? You've drawn that line in the sand. You're ready to go for this. Because if you're ready, I'm going to be right there with you, and we're gonna do this together. But yeah, the buds experience, getting through that, of course, was incredibly difficult. That's a whole nother story. I was in the goon squad for everything. Goon squad is when you're in the back of all the runs and swims, all that stuff. So because I was young, my body caught up pretty quickly. But in the beginning, I was in the back of everything, enough to make the times, but not enough to not get my butt kicked for 20 minutes after every evolution by the instructors, and trying to get me to quit. But yeah,
Yeah, nobody ever in SEAL training ever said anything is easy. That's for dang sure. And going into it, I mean, during the time that you enlisted, though, I mean, going straight from nothing to boot camp and then right to buds just wasn't a thing. Like, you had to have a rate. I had to go in as an aviation ordnance man and go to 4 weeks in school, which school was not my jam. And so I went to 4 weeks and damn near failed that, to where I was like, I'm not going to buds based off of academics here in this school as opposed to my physical. Oh my gosh, this is horrible. So you being able to shortcut it and go straight to buds, I mean, no wonder why you're in the Groom Squad. You know nothing about it, and you're brand new and right there. That's insane, man.
Yeah, every day I woke up like I had no idea what was about to happen. And some people said, like, that was an advantage for you, just not knowing what was going to happen, not having that anxiety. Of course, I mean, I had the anxiety anyway. Just, I was just like, man, I hope I'm here, be able to lay back down in this rack at the end of the night. But yeah,
it's fascinating though what you said about, like, a big thing in companies, a big thing in the SEAL teams is, knowing your team and knowing the talent pool that you have, right? So when you go to buds, I saw guys that were 200, 220 pounds, sheer rock muscle. Typically what most people say about me, that's what I look like. And then they see me off camera and they're like, you're like 160, dude. So saw big guys with muscles. And then I saw triathletes and pro triathletes. And I'm like, crap, if this is really what it takes, I'm screwed. And then those guys started quitting quickly. And I'm like, wow. And then you start to see guys who don't have the six pack that are absolutely annihilating the O course or doing the 4 mile time run super fast or swimming like fish. And you're like, I'll never judge a book by its cover again. And amazing what kind of talent pool is out there. And when we can lock into that and say like, wow, you know who you have here. This is what we can do with them to achieve bigger success. That was a big eye-opening experience for me.
Yeah,
What,
I think
go ahead.
one thing I want to point out real quick, a lot of people don't realize, I think probably 99% of people out there who aren't familiar with special operations with the SEAL teams think that you go to SEAL training to learn how to be a SEAL. And that is not the case. When you go to this BUDS SEAL training, it's a giant grinder. You pour 200 guys in there, and what comes out on the other end are those 20 SEALs that were in the class. Like you have that mindset. You're a SEAL when you go in there. You just don't know it yet. And that's what BUDS is. It's that giant grinder, and it pops out those guys who had that mentality. You don't learn anything about being a SEAL after you graduate and you start SQT, your SEAL tactical training. That's when you actually learn how to be a SEAL. But that first 6 months is just a grinder. They just want to grind down and see who are our SEALs here. So the one thing I tell some of my clients, like, you might be a SEAL mindset wise within your community, within your particular expertise. You just don't know it yet. And I had no idea. Like I said, it's you have that. Everybody has that inside them. You just have to be tested and make sure that you come out the other side.
Tommy Norris, Medal of Honor recipient, Navy SEAL, and is the only Medal of Honor recipient to be saved by another Medal of Honor recipient, and they happen to both be SEALs. He was saved by Mike Thornton.
Yeah.
And Tommy came to speak at our graduation, which was class 246, and he said, "You're not SEALs today because you graduated. You were SEALs well before this because it's a mindset." And it blew my mind. And I'm thinking to myself, like, you hear that, mom and dad? Check me out, Because they're like, what is happening right now? Like a year and a half ago, you were failing every subject in school, basically, and now you're here graduating this. Like, what is Are you sure that you didn't clone yourself? Like, what's going on? It is so true, though, man. Well, I think what you're doing is awesome because it's not like you can't cookie cut or something like that, right? It's a lot of work. It's a lot of strategic thinking. It's really getting to know your people. And like you said, getting to know people, operating with empathy. I mean, it takes a lot of work to help a company rise. So to reemphasize, going back to what you do, what is the end goal you're looking for with each corporation at the 12-week period end? What are you looking to achieve with them?
So again, for the 12-week, that's more for individuals. So that's helping two different 12-week programs I built. One is a breakthrough. So that's anywhere from like a senior manager through VP level, looking to become those more elite leaders, break through where they currently are, unlock their potential, become those more elite leaders that inspire inspiration and start leading teams at a level where they really produce results. The other program I've designed is for the very top level leaders. So we're talking CEOs, founders, elite athletes who are already at that professional level, taking them to helping them become the elite leaders that they can be. So that's a little bit different. So those two processes, the way they're built is we work very intimately through the first 8 weeks, going through identifying, building their foundation, customizing to them, addressing those challenges and implementing those over that 8 weeks. And then the last 4 weeks is all about implementation. So at the end of 8 weeks, we've covered everything. We've built that transformation, set up the legacy. That next 4 weeks is all about now implementing that into their corporation, into their company, whatever side they're on, whether they're breaking through or already leading a high level caliber as a CEO, bringing those and implementing them into reality. So I'm there for them over that month, every single week, multiple times a week to help them, because obviously there's probably inherently going to be some challenges as they're implementing this back into their particular life in whatever capacity that might be. So that last 4 weeks is really just helping them as they come up with challenges. How do I best helping them implement it properly, being there for any questions that they have and helping them do that. As far as a corporation, like I said, that would probably be a week to 2 week engagement. The biggest thing for them is once that CEO reaches out to me and lets me know, hey, here's our concerns, here's some of the challenges we're facing. Then again, I do that assessment. All right, here's your strengths. This is your identity. I need to understand their ethos. What is their company all about? What is that culture about? What is the end state of that? And from there, I would customize that plan. Of course, it'd be a little bit truncated, and we would hit all of those same factors in a different way because now we're thinking big corporation instead of each individual, but working towards helping them solve that goal And then, of course, after that, whatever, whether it be anywhere from 1 week to 1 month of working with them, then I would make myself available that following month for any type of questions they had, as now that they're implementing the process, helping them, making sure that everything's being implemented properly to build that legacy, make sure that everything sticks. Because again, this is not a motivational thing. This is a transformation, and for that transformation to take full effect and to build that legacy, to have that change, I'll be there for them, and making sure that I can help them implement properly.
Is there a particular person or company that you don't like to work with?
Um, the only company, hard to say. I mean, I haven't worked with a company that hasn't been grateful, and they always show gratitude. The only type of person that I can think of is someone who's not dedicated. If you're kind of coming in wishy-washy, and you're not willing to be honest with yourself, because it's this type of mentorship, it's not coming in to hold your hand. If you have a goal, some of the things are going to be difficult. Some of the things you might not want to hear. And if you can't take it, then I'm not the guy for you. But I'm never coming at you with like, hey, it's my way or the highway. I'm coming at you with full empathy, helping you understand. But if you've already made up your mind ahead of time that, hey, you're right, and there's no change, the world is wrong, that's not going to work. So you have to be open to change. You have to be open to working hard, because it's not going to be easy. So some of those challenges, but just know that I'm going to be there with you and walk you through it. We're going to do it together.
Interesting, man. Do you find that from the kind of technique and tactics and the leadership style that we have in NSW or Naval Special Warfare, do you see a similar approach within corporation today in leadership, or do they go about it a completely different way?
No, I think it's very, very relevant, and I think that's why they seek out special operations leaders so much, because they look at it as like, man, these guys are leading at that level, where for them, an emergency is when the copier goes down and they got to figure out how they're going to get out of brief. For us, it's life threatening. We are literally, you're solving some of the world's most difficult problems. Most of them are considered impossible when we get them, but we figure out a way to strategize and come up with that solution. Of course, once we come up with that, we now have to pitch it to the very higher ups to convince them that to give us, dedicate large amounts of money to us for those assets, the lives that are going to be put in our hands based on what we said that we can do, and really show them that, build that confidence so that they believe in us. So it's all those things I think resonate with big corporations. They feel like, man, if we could get leaders like that who come in, who are calm under pressure, who can come up with a strategic plan, be able to think outside the box, create these solutions, but also provide that inspiration to the teams that they're leading, and then up the chain to the higher ups, giving them that confidence, like, yes, these guys know what they're talking about. That sounds like a great plan. I am now willing to dedicate these resources to this to make sure that can happen. And that's when change happens in a company, especially a big company like that. When you make that shift, you have that confidence, and you know that your team can perform. Your corporation is going to get to the next level, because that is going to be what changes that mindset, that whole culture of the company, and that's what gets the buy-in from the top down. That's when those employees are no longer just employees. They are invested mentally into that success because you've made them a part of that team.
So you'd mentioned that you work with individuals and then you work with corporations, and then there's this third rung too of the CEO, the founder, the elite athlete, that top echelon. You do something specific for them. What is that?
I do. So that process, it's also a 12-week process, but that process, instead of a breakthrough, that is unveiling the path to elite leadership. So this is really focusing on becoming that elite leader. They're already in a leadership position. They carry that influence. They're building the culture, and they really want to take that to the most elite level. So in that course, we focus on a couple of different things, but of course, the very first thing we want to do in the first week one, is building that foundation. So establishing that foundation of elite leadership. And that's all about that order, that integrity and ownership as that top level leader, making sure that that's set perfectly to be that example for all those others to emulate moving forward. Next, we want to focus on that strategic leadership in crisis, right? You're going to be, if you're at the helm, it's not always smooth sailing. So that's about vision, resilience, and building that composure, that being that leader that others want to follow. From there, communication and command are going to be huge, right? So leading teams through those uncharted waters, being able to navigate that, providing that inspiration and evidence so that they have the confidence to follow you. After that, we're going to focus on the discipline standard. that's huge. You're at the top, you have to have that discipline. So that's where culture, accountability, and having those high standards that all of that is clear and understandable, so that every step forward is going in that positive direction. After that, we want to talk about operational excellence. So this is within the organization, being able to delegate that properly and having that culture adapt to that and making sure that you're all on the same page. Next, we're going to talk about strategic legacy. It's about mentorship. When you're at that leadership level, you are a mentor. You're the one that people are following. So it's about multiplying your leadership skills, multiplying the leaders below you, providing that succession, because once you step out, you want that legacy to continue. You want someone to be able to step into that. And then that's where, kind of back to self, what we talked about earlier with self, the mastery of self and identity. So becoming that visionary leader and being able to put that into action, putting that type of visionary leadership into action. That way you not only become it, but you are living it and others can see it. And then finally, building that elite code. So this is all about decision, action, and destiny, unleashing your elite leadership for impact, setting that legacy that's going to be the foundation for that company, the culture, and everything moving forward. So after you step away, you know that it's in good hands and carrying on that tradition that you built. So that would be the course of action for those higher level individuals who are looking to become those leaders at the most elite level. Again, 8-week process. We would really dig into each one of those intimately together. And then that next 4 weeks, there'd be a lot of one-on-one interaction, just open discussion on how to implement that properly. Any challenges that they're facing or questions that they have in that month of implementation, just being there for them one-on-one to be able to help them make that implementation, make sure that everything is perfectly set make sure that everything's perfectly set on the foundation that they built in their intended goal state.
When are you writing a book?
You know what? I've been asked that so many times. I just feel like I would love to. If once I get enough time, maybe after I get this up and going, that's one thing I would definitely love to do, because everyone I tell my story, it's like, Holland, you got to write a book. It would be, there's nothing out there like that. There's no other story like yours. And, we only dove into the beginning part. That's kind of crazy. There's so many other, just hilarious stories about buds, about Hell Week, about boot camp. There's so many crazy things because I had no clue what was going on, and just things that were insane. And then, of course, in the SEAL teams, there's so many great stories that you could probably write a book about your experiences as well. They're just so unique. But yeah, it's definitely on the horizon. I think it's not going to be so much about me. It'll be some of my stories, but just providing that funny inspiration to help people realize you can come from nothing and accomplish the greatest goal that you have in mind. It may seem impossible, but if you focus, it does, and it doesn't have to be this arduous, like climbing up Everest journey. It could be fun. It could be, it could be something that's funny, inspirational, something that you'll never forget, and just something that you'll be able to share at some time. And you've probably heard this before. I've heard this told people. Buds is what is the best time that you never want to have again. So funny, so many difficult things, so many challenges, but so many funny things happen. But it's the greatest time that you never want to have again. So yeah, I just look at it like that.
You mentioned something about 10 minutes ago about kind of the different pieces that you attack when getting in with a company or an individual. And then you really hit on health, which I think is something that's under talked about, underutilized, underrated. And I look at a guy like you, I can see your veins popping in your muscles. You need to stop showing me those. It's making me have a complex right now. But I think that's the key, right? Is I look at a leader and I expect that leader, if they're doing health, you can see the health worn on their body at all times. And that just shows you like, okay, there's discipline here, so there's discipline elsewhere. It's easy to let your health and wellness go. And so that is a big key that I always like to point out with guys. It's like, it's one of those mentality things where I have to do my best for myself so that I can be good for everybody else. And I just wanted to shout that out to you because you show it, you emulate it. You haven't quit after being a SEAL. Like, I did all the hard work then, and now I'm going to be lazy, just sit on these accolades. No, I'm going to continue to bust my ass to help others, and I'm going to show them, and I'm going to act the same way that I'm teaching you every single day. Do you incorporate any kind of health in this as well, or talk about health with individuals or companies?
Yes, I do. So I think it's so important because, like you said, to me, I have to lead by example. The reason why it's always been important to me to stay healthy physically, mentally. If I'm saying one thing, but I look a different way, then, I'm not leading by example. And that's a huge factor. But the reason why I do incorporate that is because as a leader, once they become a leader and start leading teams, it's not easy. It can take a toll. I mean, you know just as well as me, especially in special operations, so many guys have issues with the mental aspect of it because it's so intense. If
Yeah.
you don't take that time to take a knee, and it doesn't have to be, you don't have to take a knee for months. Some guys like, oh, I don't want to get out of operations. And then I'm not saying you have to take a knee for a month. Maybe it's take a knee for that night and just, hey, refocus, regroup, because if you don't, you're going to burn out and you're not going to perform optimally anyway. And that's when once your performance drops, you can't lead, right? So the big thing is being able to recognize that the body, the mind, it does need rest. It does need recuperation. We all want to be super tough. We all want to be, the baddest guy on the block. But the only way to really get there is to take a step back, look at the big picture. It's not about me. It's not about an individual. It's about what do I want to accomplish? And can I accomplish that just going 100% nonstop without any rest? No, I can't. I know I can't. So it's important to me to take those steps, to pause, look at see where things are at currently. How do I get better? What do I need to do to get there? Because sometimes it's like I need to take a break. I need to take my mind off this for a little bit. I need to focus on a different area to regain that kind of let those resources build back up. Now I'm ready to attack it, full speed again. Because if I'm just going at it 50% for a week, it's nothing if I were just to take the 2 days off and then go at 100% for 5 days, I'll accomplish so much more. But yeah, that rest piece, that recuperation piece, both mentally, physically, emotionally, is key to getting to that higher elite level.
That's interesting because I've felt this over the last couple of years. I think it's really since the COVID and all that crap. I have felt like everybody who's in the workforce has like working 3 times as fast and as hard as they ever have. Like it just sped up. So I'm like, my gosh, there's no downtime and people are just burning themselves at all ends. Are you seeing that too?
I am, yeah. There's a huge concern with work-life balance, and especially for a lot of these higher up leaders, they have families, and one of their regrets is always when they start talking about is like, I need to change this. I have kids who are in high school and college. Feel like I let them down. I wasn't there for the games. I didn't go to the recitals. I wasn't there for the performances, and it's something that hurts them when they look at it now, like what was gained for that sacrifice isn't matching up, and they want to change that. So another part of it is relationships, not just work relationships, but with the family, making sure that that's all in focus because it's going to change your dynamic as a leader and it's going to make sure that your priorities are aligned. And again, that's why that assessment is so important in the beginning. We want to make sure that we're taking in the big picture because we never want to become a great leader at the expense of family.
Mm.
That's I would never do that. That's never my goal. I don't want to be a part of something like that because that only leads to regret. But yes, it is a huge concern for individuals especially as they climb that ladder, being able to identify and really understand where are my priorities, what is most important to me. Because you and I talked about this before. I feel like if the greatest thing that I was ever remembered for was being a Navy SEAL, then I severely failed in my life's mission because it's something that I accomplished, but I am way more proud of being, a father, a family man, a son, a brother, a friend. Those are the things that are important to me. A mentor, so much more important to me than being a SEAL. It was SEAL. I'm very happy that I did what I did. I'm proud to a certain extent. I would say proud is the wrong word. I would just say honored is the better word. I'm honored to have served. But it's not my identity. If you were to look in my house from the time I became a SEAL through now, never once had a Navy SEAL picture or any awards, and none of that. I think probably because it was never important to me growing up. It just never really meant much to me, and I always gave that stuff to my parents every time I got an award or any type of medals or anything that I could hang up. I give it to my parents. And my sisters kind of joke because they have a Holland shrine at their house of all the things that. Um, but to
I
me,
think
that's
all our
simply
parents do.
yeah. But to us, we weren't there for that. We
Yeah.
came in there for that brother to do the mission, to operate at the highest level at the tip of the spear, and that's what's important to us. And that's why that brotherhood is so amazing and irreplaceable.
Yeah, for sure. I actually, funny story about that, the medals, the plaques, all this stuff. So you have these little things, we call them I love me stuff or I love me walls or whatever. We have these things, but when you're in the teams, you have in your like personal cage at the command, you'll see guys that have all this stuff just stored in there collecting dust, like don't give a
Yeah.
crap about it, right? And I think
Yeah.
it's like years and years after you get out of the service that you look back on it, you hang it up just because you reminisce over the great times that you had. It goes back to the camaraderie and the brotherhood, not about the accolades, just about being with the boys, right? So if somebody is really excited to get with you and train with you and hire you for your services, what is the best way to contact you?
Two ways. So probably the easiest way is through LinkedIn. Find me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn page has been converted recently to the Legacy Forge mindset. Has information about what I do, what I provide, how I provide that. A link to be able to schedule a meeting with me. So the first meeting that they'll schedule with me is just a brief 15-minute meeting. Is where I call it a clarity call. It's just to see if I can help you, to see if there's alignment. I'm not trying to sell anybody on something that I can't help them with that, but can't help them out with. So the first thing is let's identify what is your goals. Can I help you out with that? And if that's in alignment, then I'll schedule a follow-on 45-minute meeting, really deep dive into what their situation is, how I can help them from there. If there's an alignment at that point, then I'll give them an offer to work with me, and they can decide, whether to move forward or look at other things. But that, and then also my website, it's lfmindset.com, has all the same information. A little bit harder to find. It's not as readily available as LinkedIn, but there's also a link on LinkedIn to that website. Goes into more detail about my background, what I provide, how I provide, and a link to be able to schedule that meeting.
We're going to throw all that stuff up here so you'll be able to go direct to both of those locations to get in touch with Holland. So, it'll be right here on the show for you to actually check it out. That being said, I mean, we've gone through an array of what you do, but have we missed anything? Is there anything else that we need to cover down on that you do?
No, I think the biggest thing that I really want to highlight is what separates me from all those other mentors. Again, I don't have it's not about having a set program. I really focus on each individual, and that's the way that transformation happens. It's not what's the best way to say this? It's not a set program. It's not fluff. It's not a seminar. This is you and I working very closely together to address those challenges and helping you understand that you're not alone. That if you work with me and if I do provide that inspiration for you to give you the confidence to reach for that next rung on the ladder, know that it's going to be a journey that we do together. You're never on your own. I'll be there every step of the way to help you make that transformation. So that and just knowing that that chemistry is really important to me, providing a very unique process for each individual, and just being there for them.
That's legit, man. I can imagine that a bunch of these people, they work with you and then they're like, are you for hire, like full time to come into our company? I can imagine that happens.
Yeah, it has happened a couple of times. But when I was working for other people, that's conflict of interest. So I always said, I have to respectfully decline because that would go against the company that I'm working for.
That's legit, man. There was a woman one time that asked me if she could hire me to basically do security for her and her family, very wealthy family. And I was like, no, you can't afford me. And she's like, oh yeah, try me. And I was like, nothing, because I don't want to do that. So, that's
Yeah.
it's interesting. All right, switching fire on you real quick to bring it back to the human side of Holland Romero, aka H. Who is your hero and why?
Wow. First thing that comes to mind, probably very cliche, you probably hear it a lot. I would say Jesus.
Mm.
What I think of one person in all throughout history who not only talked the talk but walked the walk all the way down through, you know, giving his life up for us and never once wavered, and had the same message and led the ultimate example of leading by example. Servant leader, and I would say by far that sticks out in my mind as my hero.
No doubt. It's the best answer. It's funny. When we started this show a couple of years ago, say 3 or 4 years ago, we're getting a lot of team guys talking about different heroes that we served with, which, we all share the same brotherhood of heroes when we served with those guys, right? But in the last year, I have seen a massive conversion when I ask this question to every team guy going right to God. And I'm like, how awesome is that? That is a cool thing, man, because there's nobody better to idolize at all.
No, yeah, and it's funny. Well, not funny, but it's true. I would say when I got out, you just realize, and I've always been passionate about my faith, And I have no doubt that the only reason why I'm here today is because of my belief in God and the prayers of not only my prayers, but those of family that kept me safe. So many situations I could tell you about. I'm over 20 where things didn't look good, where things could have gone very bad. And just out of nowhere, something happened that really helped us out. And I think it was those prayers from back home. But it's always been important to me. And now that I'm out, I'm not so hyper focused on the mission and all those things. And I take a step back and I'm like, wow, man, like that was there the entire time. And now I have much more time to focus on it. It kind of makes me feel sad a little bit that I didn't walk the walk as good as I should have as a team guy. I feel like, man, the way I look at it now, the way I feel about my faith is, I'm a Christian. And if I say that, it should be evident. And to me, if I was put on trial for being a Christian, there should be enough evidence to convict me. And if there's not, if you were to go around and ask people, hey, is Holland a Christian? And they're like, oh, I don't know. Then I'm not living my life the way I should. But if I'm, living it the way I want to now, focused on, Christ first, always putting him, he's my guiding light, and focusing, just letting all the other stuff go, making sure that that's my main focus, then I could never go wrong. And I want there to be evidence to support that.
That is so well said, man. That is so well said. The evidence to convict you. I love that. That's powerful, man.
I appreciate it. Yeah, like I said, it's just been something that's been on my heart, and I feel, like I said, I feel bad. I didn't live it like I should have before. I got kind of caught up in, like all the team guy stuff we all do. Just kind of getting in your own head and putting yourself first. But now that I see it, it's just my main focus. Just to be faithful and obedient, and I want nothing more than his will in my life, to be focused and be about his business.
Amen, brother. Well, it's funny you say that, because I remember a specific op in 2007 where, we get ready for an op, and then we gear up, and then we go through the plan, and then we dirt dive it, and then we go run it, right? And this one particular op, for some reason, we got down on a knee and we prayed, and I'm like sticking my head up like, wait a minute now, what are we doing here? Like, what is this op that I don't know about? We're getting down on one knee. And that was kind of a trigger for me to say, like, wow, I've kind of given up on my belief system, not belief systems, but I've given up on my conversations with Christ. And so I needed to reevaluate that. So I'm so glad to hear that, man. Glad that you're a Christian. We're going to an awesome place after this earth. And sure. We're living good here. So I really appreciate you jumping on, man. I appreciate you being open and vulnerable to people. I really appreciate that you're taking what you've learned and converting it to how people in the civilian world can identify, adapt, and learn as well. Because it is about being united and helping people expand and grow from what you've learned. And I want to keep having you back on as you continue to grow. We're going to push this out to everybody, and hopefully we get some business people your way to start working with you. And then I'll piggyback on it, ride the coattails, and say, like, what'd you learn? Teach me something.
For sure. It's been an absolute honor, brother. I really appreciate the opportunity to connect with you and speak and share.
Frogman Friday.